Please give it up for Canardian.
My hometown messed me up. She won big on a Timmy's Cup. I heard about it at the Rotary Club. That's so Canardian. Still don't stop.
This is Canardian, the podcast gossiping about Canadian hometowns. I'm Kattie Laur, editor at Pod the North, and I am very excited for the first ever live show of Canardian. Woo! I am joined by the iconic Canadian media mogul, Hannah Sung. She is the co-founder of Media Girlfriends, the award-winning Canadian podcast production company led by journalists of color. Hannah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Katie. I'm really honored to be here.
I'm honored that you're here, to be honest.
No, I'm honored.
It feels nuts. I remember watching you on MuchMusic back in the day, and oh my God, my heart is fluttering.
I barely remember that. So thank you. You can remember for the both of us.
Okay, Hannah.
Yes.
Where is your hometown, and how would you describe the vibe of it in 5 words or less?
Oh, God, I should have prepared the 5 words.
Yeah, everyone forgets about this question.
Oh, God, okay, yes. My hometown is Scarborough, so it's more of like a home burb, okay, home suburb. 5 words, my God, I really messed this up by not preparing. Suburban, green, immigrants done good.
Ooh, love this. And it checks out with pretty much everything I've got prepared, so I think we're in for a treat here. Okay, so I like to kick off this show with my version of like the tourism board pitch. This is what I would put like on a pamphlet about your hometown to like give to somebody.
Let's hear it.
So I'm going to run through it. Okay, insert corporate music cue here. Oh, hold on one sec. He's going to hit it. It adds to the vibe, okay? So just give it a second here. It's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. There we go. Scarborough, Ontario. Motto is Home of the Bluffs. Population somewhere around 600,000 people, and it's a place best known for, of course, the Scarborough Bluffs. For Canadian rapper Cardinal Official, who is also known to show up at various Frosh Week parties. He attended mine, and he's always sort of around Toronto. It's also known for the annual Highland Creek salmon run, and it's widely known to be a home to very diverse population, which means it's absolutely stacked with incredible mom and pop restaurants. It sits on the territory of the Wendat, Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. In fact, in 2000, archaeologists unearthed a 600-year-old Huron-Wendat village in the West Highland Creek area.
No way.
Evidence of longhouses, sweat lodges, and over 20,000 artifacts. Pretty impressive.
Wow.
And finally, because Toronto is the center of the universe, I have to mention how far of a drive Scarborough is from Toronto. And even though Scarborough is the suburb of Toronto, Scarborough is the suburb of Toronto, still basically an hour away, right?
Yeah, don't take transit. It'll be even longer.
So what am I missing from my brochure here?
You really hit it, I think.
Okay.
I mean, we can fill in some detail, but
Okay.
yeah.
So your childhood roots are in Scarborough.
Yes.
You both grew up in the Malvern neighborhood.
True.
And the Highland Creek neighborhood.
Correct.
I've already had Alex Whitfield on the show, who unfortunately could not make it today. He was going to be here, and I was going to call him up and get him to scream into the microphone. Fortunately, he's not here. But he came on to the show to unpack Malvern already, and the Toronto Zoo, and their radioactive property that was there for a while that was discovered in the 80s. So I want to talk to you about Highland Creek.
Yes, please.
Where you spent your teen years.
Yeah.
Which are always the juiciest years.
Not for me, but yes, go on.
So generally on Reddit, people say it's like a pretty lovely spot. The quote here is just very safe. It's mostly families and old folks.
Yeah, that is true. It's very quiet, which as a teenager bugged me, right? Because I was deeply bored. And as I already kind of alluded to, it's not easy to get around by transit that far out in Scarborough. Like Scarborough has been criminally underserved for transit in general by the city. So it's something that, I mean, talk to anybody from Scarborough, we're all mad about it. But the further east you go, the worse it is. And so this is like quite far east. Anyway, it was really beautiful and tree-lined, and I was right by like a ravine and a park, a great big park area that I would bike through because there was nothing else to do. And I remember there was a cemetery, which I don't know why I was in there, but it was just a little...
What else is there to do?
That's what I'm talking about. And the names on the tombstones, it kind of blew my mind because it was the names of all the streets around. So it definitely had like an old roots kind of vibe.
Ooh, okay. It's kind of funny that you mentioned the traffic and the commute. This is the only downside I could find about this area of Scarborough. I have to read you this quote, and this is from Reddit, of course. If you need to commute downtown or anywhere westward, it sucks so much. And there's periods in between each of those words. I did it for years, and I'm still traumatized by the daily grind on the 401. I have vowed to never commute like that again.
Oh, man.
Truly traumatizing.
Yeah, I feel for that person. You know, I didn't even really drive. Like I did learn to drive right at 16 because when you live in the burbs like that, you can't get anywhere unless you drive. I mean, at least in my family, like I wasn't allowed to take the bus late at night. I mean, these were the years that people were really scared of the dark in general, but just public, like being out in public and being a teenage girl. And I had to learn how to drive if I wanted to go anywhere, which also most of the time I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. But yeah, so I
living it up in your teen years.
I'm telling you, so many Friday nights with the X-Files. So I drove a bit, but I wasn't really zipping around, you know. And when I did want to go downtown, which was a lot, I went every weekend during the day. I would take the subway. Yeah. Why would you go anywhere at night? I took the subway, and I'm actually pretty amazed by how much I did get around because when I was younger, I had summer jobs at like Ontario Place. That's on the whole other side of the city. I took the TTC. I had a summer job at Wonderland. What was I smoking?
It was so 20
far. Years
to get there?
Yes, every day I did that commute.
My God.
So I know commutes, and I always took the TTC. I think over the years it's gotten worse because when I grew up, it was the 90s, and actually traffic it wasn't what it is now. So yeah, I still got around, but I also felt like I was stuck way out there.
Yeah, and sometimes you think back to your teen years and you're like, how did I end up in that place? Like, what person did I hitch a ride with? Or like, what late night bus did I end up on that somehow my parents didn't know about? Like, you look back at your teen years and you're like, how am I still alive? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of that, actually.
Okay. I'm happy for you.
Sheltered.
Well, that makes sense because notably, Highland Creek is actually one of the most prestigious neighborhoods in Scarborough. Up until the 1950s, the Highland Creek area was mostly rural farmland until it became the present-day neighborhood that it is today. And it's located along... who would have guessed it? The Highland Creek River. Highland Creek. And generally, there's still a lot of nature and wildlife that people can go see. But the western part of the neighborhood is largely occupied by the University of Toronto Scarborough campus, which is really like the dominant landmark of this area. But there's one other notable landmark in this area. Hannah, can you guess what it is?
I know what you're going to say, but I don't know what name you're going to use for it.
That's the real question, isn't it? I just have it down as 255 Old Kingston Road. Currently, it is the Baitul Afayat Mosque.
It's a mosque now.
It's a mosque now. So the building where the mosque sits now is over 100 years old. It's basically as old as so-called Canada. But it wasn't always a mosque. It started off as a commercial hotel in 1844, and then it became Maxwell's Highland Inn, which was also known as Maxwell House, which is a coffee brand, right? I actually didn't see if there was any correlation there, but I am like 80% sure there's a correlation there. Somebody fact check this later.
Something to sleuth.
If you listen to this show on a regular basis, you'll hear the listener discretion off the top of the show that's like, don't trust anything we say here. Again, you should never trust anything you see on Reddit or Facebook groups, though. So after Maxwell House, it became the Highland House around World War II. Then in the 70s, it became a bar called the Running Pump, and this seemed to be the heyday of this building. Then in the early 2000s, it became a strip club called Private Eyes. At one point, it was a couple of attendees here. They remember those times.
Familiar with it, yes.
Then at one point, it was a Korean Christian church before it eventually became the mosque that it is today.
Incredible.
And in this whole list of things that this building has been, identities it has held, I'm missing like a bunch of other random things in here. So I was just going to ask you, like, do any of these places ring a bell? Am I missing anything?
It was the Private Eyes years that I remember, and maybe that won't make sense because I just finished saying I was so sheltered, which I was as a teenager. But when we lived there, this establishment was right at the end of my street. It was
hell
right
yeah, Hannah.
at the end of my street. You could not avoid it. You went by it every day, many times. Except I did avoid it with my eyes because whenever I was in the car with my family, it's like, I don't want to talk to my dad about what is Private Eyes. You can see Private Eyes so clearly. You could probably see it from space. I mean, it had a neon sign. Private Eyes. I wonder what it is. I mean, it was just very obvious what it was. And it was the place where I would always avert my eyes driving by. But that's all I ever knew it as, Private Eyes. And then later I heard it was a church and I was like, wow, this world, I mean, things can really change. And
yeah.
There's no way that the congregation at the church didn't know what it was before. And I wonder what stories they said to each other about what, like, I don't know.
I want to know. I wish I was in those rooms for this conversation.
Yeah. And now it's a mosque. And I feel like, even the first incarnations of this building that you were saying it was an inn. So that is so fascinating to me. 1844. Like, what did this area look like in 1844? Who is staying in this inn? Mm-hmm. And the fact that this building is still there even.
The exact same building. Like,
That's
it hasn't been
wild.
torn down and rebuilt. It's the same building from 1844.
And I guess my question is why? But is there something very
solid
special?
Roots, a good foundation. Hard to find these days.
Yeah.
I will say, so there's a bunch of commentary about this building from locals online, mostly reminiscing about the building's days as the Running Pump in the 70s. And a lot of this commentary I found on 2 Facebook posts in particular, which together totaled over 100 comments. I just want you to guess what you think some of these comments were.
Some of the comments about the Running Pump?
Yeah, from the 70s. Like locals, like people named Barb and Doug commenting about their time back at the pump.
Was it like the first place they ever got loaded? Was it like...
Hannah, you're right on the money.
Okay. Because it is in a neighborhood, right? Like the house that I grew up in wouldn't have existed in the 70s for sure. But there are some older houses. And okay, so maybe other posts would have been like, were there stag and does there?
Ooh, that's a good guess. I didn't see any. Okay, so you pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
So honestly, it sounded like this place was pretty lit in the 70s. There was actually a bunch of, there was a pretty hoppin' like music venue. So Rush played there.
Oh, wow.
Triumph, Max Webster, they all played there in the 70s. Generally, though, it was the kind of place that you could successfully sneak into underage and drink as a teenager. People called it the running dump, the stomach pump, or just the dump. I have to read you some of these comments, and like, I have to tell, it was so hard to narrow down which ones to read to you because there's so many good ones. They were just absolute gold. But you're going to get like sort of the timeline as well of its like existence. Okay, so first, lots of fights in this place. This place was a biker bar in the 60s. We called it a bucket of blood. I remember being turned away by a bunch of bikers on my 19th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Straight out of a movie.
Pretty hardcore. We used to go. I was in grade 12 at the time. There were live bands everywhere those days. One of the first places I had a drink.
Adorable.
Love it. A biker bar letting 16-year-olds drink. Love that for Toronto. Drank at the running pump about 16 years old. Remember something about people stealing the cigarette machine?
An entire machine?
An entire machine filled with cigarettes.
Very Scarborough.
Drank there every Saturday since I was 16. The day before I turned 21, they cut me off for being too young.
Makes no sense, but okay.
I remember many drunken parties there with the Scarborough lifeguards during the summers in the 1970s. I went there when I was a university student at Scarborough College. Finally, a couple more. Many drunken eve there in the early 70s playing that fun Canadian game, Race Ya to the Floor. Have you ever partaken in this game?
No, have you?
Consider yourself lucky. I have. I've been to the ambulance during Frosh Week. Whoop, whoop. I was never going to admit that on this podcast, but I just did. Okay, finally, this was a familiar scene. Are you going to philosophy class? Nah, let's go down to the dump. Sounds good. Next thing, is it 10 o'clock already? I gotta go home. I got class early tomorrow morning. Somebody else said, when I look at this building, I hear Hurt So Good by John Cougar Mellencamp. Somebody else said, finally, too funny. Pick the most unholy spot you could find and make it into a church. So, Hannah, by the time you were a teen in Highland Creek, did this building eventually come for you too?
Oh man, now I wish. I mean, I guess I missed my chance to have had
you weren't
an
allowed out
underage
at night,
drink.
so.
I was not. But it really does sound like the kind of place where if you were a student at UTSC, where you would wander down the street and have a drink instead of going to class, for sure. I mean, it kind of sounds like the Scarborough version of the Brunny, the Brunswick House, which is another place that I guess no longer exists because
didn't it crumble to the ground or something? Oh
Wait,
no,
I'm
thinking of
serious?
something else.
It's a Value Village now.
Oh,
Is it not? Because it became
I'm
a
thinking of
drugstore.
the Madison. The Madison where somebody literally
yes.
fell through the second floor recently. Yeah.
Oh my God.
All of the old stomping grounds.
Yes. Well, you need to have bars like this, these kinds of establishments around a university, I guess. And sounds like the running pump was that. But I'm kind of bummed out, I guess, looking back with rose-colored glasses for an era that I was not a part of. I kind of wish that it could have been. But no, it was more of a verboten place by the time I was looking around me. And by the time I was there in that neighborhood, it was definitely privatized. And I've never been in.
Well, I will say the privatized era was also a host to many a university kid. Apparently, they were still hosting bands there. So bands would just be on stage next to poles. And then they would have to wait for the dancers to finish their set. Then the band would come on and then the dancers would come back on. So it was like still a bumping place for bands.
Yeah.
I bet Rush ended up back there at some point. Who knows? So we mentioned our deteriorating university stomping grounds. Now, some of the commentary I saw online, which was actually genuinely serious, about how this building needs to be restored and treated as a Canadian heritage building. I would personally venture so far to say that this is a Canadian heritage building. It's been around since 1844.
Yeah, for
has
real.
a lot of history. So, how does that sit with you?
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't need a plaque. I think we all, you are doing part of the good work of letting everybody know, but you and Reddit and Facebook comments. Because I feel like it is a story of Canada in a building, all the layers of all the changes. And I really do feel like my imagination is captured by what the heck was going on in 1844 there, But I love that it became a church for a Korean congregation, and then it became a mosque, and it's just serving the needs of the community. I guess in the 70s, the needs were booze, but
it's always generally I've seen it just referred to as the watering hole. It's always been a local watering hole up until now. I don't imagine people are drinking there at the mosque, but I don't know. I've been to some church basement parties before and they can get pretty crazy too. So you never know.
You know what I want to know more of? So please consult with Reddit. I want to know more about why this location, I grew up there and I didn't think it was anything special, like my neighborhood. And now I look back and I have ideas, I guess, and nostalgia. And I do think that it's something Scarborough is very special. But at the time, I didn't think it was very special. And I'm just very curious, what is it about this intersection of Old Kingston Road and Military Trail that made it the spot? what is it about that? I mean, please, Reddit, let us know.
I will say this, Hannah. In all of my research of doing this podcast, it seems like there is just weird little vortexes in each town where there's just some magic shit happening there. And I don't know what it is, but like every little town in Canada has its own little Bermuda Triangle where just weird stuff and energy just exists. It's just a ball of energy. And this is why I'm into woo-woo stuff. I'm a Libra and I'm proud to say it. Okay. So I think it's just magic. That's my
magic
answer.
energy.
Magic energy.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. So Hannah.
Yeah.
It seems like music in particular has always been a part of Scarborough's identity.
Yeah.
I mentioned the iconic Cardinal Official off the top of this episode. You began your career in Canadian media and music television on MuchMusic in 2004. Please tell me people remember MuchMusic here. Okay. Please. So what is it about Scarborough that you think made you a music lover?
Well, okay, great question. So, number one, did I mention I was bored? I really needed a window to the world. So, and I think when you're really little, I mean, I wasn't thinking about why I needed music or anything like that. You know, it's just the radio was something that you turned on to be connected. So I was really into the radio. I mean, please, everybody, this looks like a young and beautiful crowd. Please cast your mind back, way back to before the internet. We would drive around my family, little green Chevette, and, you know, flip between CFTR, which was then, it's 680 AM, which was then a pop station.
Okay.
And whatever, like, all news, all traffic station my dad would have it on.
A classic.
Those were the only two. And I think CFTR even became maybe a country station at one point because we just didn't change the channel. And we started listening to a lot of country. But, you know, we just had the radio, right? And then I got my own little, like, stereo, and I started making my own mixtapes. And then I started to listen to my own radio station, not my dad's radio station. And it was CFNY. Very cool.
Yeah.
I guess indie alternative music and British music. So like I started to get really into like, I guess you call it Brit rock. And
I just need to know what was on your mixtapes.
Oh, well, in the earlier years, it was just Extreme on repeat. Do you remember that song? More Than Words, More Than Words is all I... Okay, so I'd be like there in my room reading my Danielle Steele and like, that's like adult romance novels. Okay, I was 12 and listening to Extreme. And I was also really into hair metal around that time, like really into Guns N' Roses and I guess Def Leppard and Warrant and
The Running
Skid Row.
Pump seems like your type of place.
I was born too late, I'm telling you. I should have been born. I was born in the 70s. I should have been of drinking age or barely thereof in the 70s. I was not. So, yeah, those were the earlier years. And then in high school, I was into, I guess, yeah, like I was saying, like music from England. And so I always just kind of wanted to escape through music. I was also really into music videos, and I loved Paula Abdul and Janet Jackson. And I never got to any concerts, though, because, like, we were not in a house.
You weren't allowed at night.
Not allowed. Like, nowadays... Okay, I have a 13-year-old. Nowadays, parents pay $400 or $500 for a Kendrick ticket and take their kids. And it's like, first of all, I did not want to take my parents to a concert. Secondly, there is no way they would have taken me to a cool music concert, you know. I did go to classical piano recitals. I was performing. Those were my concerts, okay?
What grade did you get up to in the Royal Conservatory is my question for you.
Yeah, I got up to grade 9.
Me too.
Oh, whoop, whoop. Then I quit.
Yeah,
and yeah. But my first concert that I went to downtown, all the way from Scarborough, trekking downtown on the TTC, was the Stone Roses, a band from England. I was like 17. I won the tickets by calling in to a contest. And so again, I guess I had no money and no parental kind of like nudge towards a concert. So I had to win concert tickets to go to anything. It was the worst concert. It was so bad. But I didn't even know because I'd never been to one. But the band was too messed up to really play. They were very late. And then they couldn't really play. And they didn't play their one hit, which is a song called Fool's Gold. They didn't play it. And everybody was like booing and leaving. I was like, hey guys, but we're here. This is great.
This is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Totally. So, I didn't even know what to expect from a concert. Anyways, now I do go to concerts.
I'm so glad for you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Scarborough for me was all about escaping and getting out of Scarborough. And now I look back and I'm just like, it was so special. We just didn't even know. And a lot of the kind of, I guess, public persona of Scarborough was that it was not cool, or there was a lot of looking down on Scarborough, which actually always gave me a chip on my shoulder because I knew that wasn't real. Like the news media often always had a kind of undercurrent of like Scarborough. And it's like, what? And what? Scarborough's amazing.
Come for me, bro.
Yeah. Only I can diss Scarborough, okay? Only I can say it's boring and I don't like it. You cannot say that. And looking back, like Scarborough was like about our families and our friends. And I think you mentioned like all the great food and the mom and pop shops. Like, Scarborough was just so real. And I felt like anybody who ever talked about Scarborough in the media just was not from Scarborough and did not know. So it was the two things. It was like, oh my God, get me out of here. It's so boring. Nothing happens here. But also, I love it so much. You better never, disrespect Scarborough because it's the best. And so now that I'm older, I love the opportunity to just talk about Scarborough. So here I am.
Yay. Okay, this is great. You teed up so many great themes that we're about to get into.
Ooh, okay, go for it.
Okay, I want to talk to you about Abel Tesfaye. Does this name ring a bell to you?
Yes, even though I'm 50,000 years old, I do know who that is.
Who is that, Hannah?
The Weeknd.
The Weeknd. Okay, so The Weeknd is another notable Scarborough kid. And he's actually recorded at this very spot here at the Orange Lounge. Woohoo!
Amazing.
I don't know when that is. I asked the guy in the booth and he said some probably time around 2014, but we don't know for sure. It was just on the list on the website. But in my research on Scarborough, I found a ton of juice on him on Reddit, which is fascinating as he's always notably been like pretty private about his personal life outside of dating Selena Gomez and Bella Hadid. But people on Reddit are literally posting photos of him as a teen, talking about what he was like in high school. There are some pretty adorable, like normal-looking baby-faced photos of him on Reddit with comments like, "This is the dude who's gonna say, never need a bitch, I'm what a bitch need in 10 years. And a lot of people calling him the weekday. My heart.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to read some of these Reddit comments because I feel kind of bad, but like he's rich, so who cares? So quote, "I used to ride the bus with him every day, nearly every day for a year or so. He definitely stood out. Not gonna lie, I used to kind of stare at him. He always sat in the front and never seemed to have any friends with him, but there was just something about him that made him very interesting to me. Whenever he was on the bus, I would literally just put my book away and watch him. He often had a longboard or a hoverboard with him, and get this, he often wore a tail as part of his outfit, like a 4-foot-long leopard tail. And then one night, I saw him on Saturday Night Live and was mind-blowed. I was like, holy shit, that's the fucking kid from the bus." And then here's one more. "At one point, he was just that guy who sang too much around his friends. Now he's a Grammy award-winning superstar."
I love these comments.
So, like, what do you think it is about Scarborough locals feeling the need to, like, out his early life as a furry?
First of all, we have to be proud of our own, right? So if you shared a little piece of your life with The Weeknd, riding the bus, maybe being slightly stalkerish, you
only
want
a smidge.
Yeah, only a smidge. You'll want to share it, and I think that's cool, right? I think we just have to really celebrate our own because, the Weeknd is in a different level, which, by the way, I love that you're like another notable person from Scarborough, as if I'm like, yes, it's just me and the Weeknd. So thank you.
And Cardinal Official.
Is Cardi really from Scarborough?
Apparently he is.
Do you know what high school he went to?
According to Wikipedia.
Can somebody Google, do you know what high school he went to?
Whoever does gets a free drink on me at the after party. Okay, but they're already paid for, so.
No, but I mean, The Weeknd is a big international superstar. But there are many people of many levels of, varying degrees of success out in the world. Mm-hmm. And when you're from Scarborough, you just really need to shout out these folks. Like, we need to do it because we kind of all grew up with this idea of like Scarborough or whatever, like, just people from the rest of Toronto looking down on Scarborough. And it just, it's time for our comeuppance. Mm-hmm. So a few generations later, this is what we have to do. Go on the internet and post childhood photos of anybody famous that we knew.
So The Weeknd did actually leave Scarborough. He was raised in Scarborough, but at 17, he dropped out of school and moved into an apartment in Parkdale in Toronto with two friends of his. Apparently, that's where his stage name came from because he moved out on a weekend.
Oh.
And then he decided to take out the extra E because there was another Canadian rock band called The Weeknd, and he just didn't want to deal with like somebody suing him. Even though it's Canada, nobody sues anybody here. As a Scarborough kid yourself, though, and a former music journalist, how does his move away from Scarborough at 17 sit with you? Is this treacherous behavior to the Scarborough people?
No.
Or is this just the Canadian music scene?
Okay, so not sure about that second question, but the whole point of Scarborough was to get out, but then to come back, to feel tethered, you know what I mean? But the whole point was to get out. And I think that his migration totally makes sense, right? Because you have to take your baby steps before you, I guess, have your world domination. He went from Scarborough to the other side of the city, which I don't mind because I'm also West Side now. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But, he had to take his baby steps. And then, honestly, when you leave Scarborough and you go downtown, quote unquote, it is a whole other world. Mm-hmm. It is totally different. Old Toronto, if I may call it that, other neighborhoods of Toronto, because I feel like Scarborough, there were so many waves of immigration, and it was always whatever's happening in the world, you felt it in Scarborough, And if I think back to the people I went to grade school with, it's like kids came from Sri Lanka, kids came from Tibetan sisters came. I remember it's just whatever was happening in the world, you felt it in Scarborough. Mm-hmm. And then you go to old Toronto, if I may, like the rest of Toronto, downtown Toronto. And it's just a different world. It's a real culture shock. It can be. Mm-hmm. And so I think you have to take your baby steps out into the world. Although nowadays in 2025, maybe that's not the case because just the internet. The internet trademark emoji. Yeah. Maybe you don't need to do all those baby steps, but it makes sense to me when you say that The Weeknd moved to Parkdale.
Okay. So people claim that he actually doesn't rep Scarborough enough because he got his shine from Queen Street West. They claim his sound is, quote, gloomy downtown Toronto. But it does turn out that he actually hustled pretty hard in Scarborough even after he moved out. At 18, he performed at the University of Toronto Scarborough's Orientation Week talent show. He didn't even go there. He just contacted the Frosh Week organizers and said he was from Scarborough and wanted the chance to perform.
I love that.
They just let him.
I love it.
They're like, cool, you got a good voice, up on stage you go. Apparently, he also performed at the Laurier Frosh Week at a student bar for $5. Not even in Toronto. And then also apparently he would often sing at Yonge and Dundas Square, a ton, and apparently worked at the American Apparel there for quite a time.
Yes, I knew that.
Yeah. And then eventually he did come back to Scarborough and apparently donated $500,000 to Scarborough General Hospital.
Oh, good for him.
I think that's how you make your comeback for sure.
Yeah, see, that is the journey. You leave and you come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some comments from Reddit about his trajectory here. Respect for the achievement. Not a fan of his music. He's to me what Nickelback is to rock. Overplayed and overdone. Ironic, both are Canadian. Thoughts?
I must thumbs down that comment.
Downvote, downvote.
Downvote it. I'm not even a huge Weeknd fan, but I enjoy his music a lot, and like my kid, who I think I mentioned him already, he's a teenager. I have 2 kids, but my teenager is in a music class where for his presentation, I'm not really sure how this evolved, but he had to sing a Weeknd song in front of the class, like by himself.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this was
I'm a motherfucking star boy.
Seriously. He's like, I can't feel my face. I'm like, do you know what this song is about? Just curious. Who assigned this to you? No, but I actually didn't mind. I was just impressed he could sing in front of the class. But yeah, how adorable that in 2025, a Weeknd song, was something that you do for grades in school. Yeah, so what was your question about?
There was no question. I just wanted to comment on it.
I don't like it when somebody says that they don't like the Weeknd, because I love anybody from Scarborough. I'm deeply offended that he was called the Nickelback of pop music. I mean, now I just want to start a beef with Nickelback. I don't. Maybe I do.
Well, speaking of beef, you're going to love this last comment then if you're really pro the Weeknd. Hey, Drake, this is really what it's like to start from the bottom.
Wait, somebody said that about the Weeknd because he's from Scarborough, sorry.
Because he hustled so hard.
Yes.
Yeah, he wasn't on Degrassi, I guess. And so therefore, he was at Yonge and Dundas Square singing for the masses, working a part-time job at American Apparel, and also singing at orientation Frosh Weeks.
I love it. But Drake was his friend, though, right? So it's not like
I'm not following the beef.
Yeah, no, I just mean he had friends in high places too, like the Weeknd did, because they worked
in
together.
Parkdale.
Yeah. But I love hearing the little snippets about the Weeknd being this young man who could not stop singing. I love that.
I know.
He is where he needs to be and where he should end up. Yeah, it's great. He was that guy who just sang too much. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. But this is who he was meant to be. That's
I have
awesome.
to say, I kind of identify with this because, like, I personally have never been able to stop talking. And I find myself in the podcasting business just because it feels right.
It's right for you.
I think I identify with the Weeknd's journey there.
Yes.
And I also too moved to Toronto as a teenager, and I went to school here and did radio and television arts. So
yeah,
woo. So I identify there. Here's my final question for you then, Hannah. As a music-loving Scarborough kid who also ended up in Toronto, how does this journey resonate with you?
The Weeknd's journey?
Yeah. I can't help but see parallels here. I almost feel like I think you paved the way for him, to be honest.
Oh my God, say more.
What else is there to say? You're an icon.
People on the line.
Would there be a Canadian music industry without you?
Oh, no, obviously. It's just me.
Yeah. This is what I thought.
You know what? I'm uncomfortable with the spotlight. No, I'm kidding. I just think, like I was saying earlier, that Scarborough is this kind of natural progression of what happens when people come from all over the world, and then we all like hang out together and we just learn about each other's cultures, i.e. learn how to swear in every language. And then and you kind of feel, honestly, you get this slight sense of racism from some teachers or from like the news media. Like you sense all that. Kids pick it all up. And then fast forward a couple of generations or a couple of decades, and this is just what naturally happens. People become successful, they affect culture, they create culture, they become leaders. And why did anybody think that wouldn't be happening from Scarborough or in Scarborough or by Scarborough people, Sure, I'm going to take credit for the Weeknd. I am responsible.
You should.
But actually, it's just, I'm older. And everything just naturally had its progression, like generations of immigrant kids who we all just like were fumbling around and trying to be Canadian, whatever that meant. I think now we can look back and understand what it means to be many things at once. And honestly, it's just kind of like the beauty of what Scarborough is. Scarborough is like the best of Canada, if you ask me.
Period.
Yeah. Can everybody just shed a tear for how poignant that is. No, seriously. Really, like Scarborough is my Canada. So yeah, Canada isn't perfect, but Scarborough's not perfect. Like Scarborough was a mixed experience for me too growing up. But it's just like whatever weird experiment we have going on in Canada with immigration, and now we're many generations and decades deep, like it's going well for the most part. So yeah, The Weeknd, me, Scarborough, the end.
Okay, Hannah, every episode I ask my guests to bring a juicy story about their hometown. It can be real, fake, something they heard through the grapevine, and then I guess at the end whether or not it's true. I understand you struggled with this because you're not a liar.
Oh, yeah.
And you said your memory is faded, but tell me, what did you want to tell me about Scarborough?
Oh my God, when you say your memory is faded, it does make me sound 50,000. No, I just always have had a very bad memory. So I was trying to think of a story or a piece of gossip. And then when you did throw in, it could be something fake and I could trick you, like that game. I think it's called Balderdash. Like
I was going to say two truths and a lie.
Oh, yeah, many games. Yeah. I cannot lie. I'm so boring like that. I'm really bad at it. So, I mean, I actually just thought I'd tell you about my childhood.
Yes, I want to hear about your childhood.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Where did Hannah Sung come from? Tell me.
Yeah, well, as you know, there's a place called Highland Creek. It's mainly marked by private eyes. Well, actually, so I did grow up in Malvern until I was 10 years old. And my parents, as Korean immigrants, were like shop owners, like until I was 10. So I basically grew up in strip plazas.
Okay.
Strip plazas are the cornerstone of Scarborough. Okay. It's where business happens. It's where families make their money to live and stuff. And my parents had a Video 99.
Ooh.
Which was an actual video rental shop.
Wait, that's so cool though.
Is it cool? You know what? It was so long ago that they had VHS machines. Like people would rent the whole machine and take it home in a little zip-up case. And so one summer I was I wasn't too old for a babysitter, but like I was too young to be left home all summer. So we just sat behind the counter with my mom all summer. And I do not know how my mom didn't go crazy because I was a really kind of obedient and quiet child. Like give me a stack of 10 books and you would not know I was there. But my brother was like a little kid and he's like, you can't hold me down in this video
just
rental shop.
Around the aisles.
Literally ripping around. And every 5 seconds he'd be like, Mom, can I go buy candy at the shop? And she'd be like, finally one day she said, no, I can't just keep giving you money to buy. I don't have money for you to buy candy. And so he had this at the time little toy that was like a kazoo, but it was like a very 80s toy. Tell me if you remember this. It was like a round little
yeah.
Oh my God, people are nodding. You remember this? So who gave him one? So he had one. And he was like, oh, we don't have money? So he stood outside our store and he, with the door open, he was like, and then he would like point into the store to everybody who walked by. And so when my mother realized what he was doing, she's like, oh my God. And she was like, of course, I only know the story because she told it later, but she was dying. She was so mortified, but also he was the cutest kid. And he was just like the most adorable 4-year-old, like, need some candy money.
Street performance. I think your brother was paving the way for The Weeknd.
Totally. He's a pharmacist now in Sudbury. So he left Scarborough, went very far away. But yeah, and so, but then we were done with that shop and the entire world was done with VHS, I guess.
Sadly, R.I.P.
But I also remember like Korean groceries. We went to the strip plaza for that. And I am a big K-drama fan now. So like I binge this stuff on Netflix. But at the time, there were bootlegged VHS tapes behind the counter at the Korean grocery. That's how you watched the OG K-dramas. So yeah, just strip plazas are my jam. I'll never turn my nose up at them. It's like they raised me. That's Scarborough.
Oh, I love that. Hannah, thank you so much for joining me on
thank you,
Canardian.
Katie.
What's your latest project that you want to shout out? What should people be excited for?
Well, I have many projects just under the radar that I'm working on, but a new thing that I'm doing personally is that I'm working for an organization called the Equality Fund, and they're a feminist fund that looks to basically fund organizations, feminist-run organizations in the Global South. They have a podcast all about how they started. It's called Moonshot, Making the Equality Fund. So for the podcast crowd, if you're interested in listening to that, then you can find out all about the Equality Fund.
Beautiful. And I am Kattie Laur. You can find me through all the links in the show notes that will be in this episode. And make sure you subscribe to my newsletter, Pod the North, the newsletter for Canadian podcasters. Thank you to the Soundwave Summit for having me and for everyone who showed up to this show. And thank you to the Orange Lounge. The Canardian theme song is by my very talented future husband, Mark Allen, with support from his hometown buddies, People Like Us. And I also sing in the track, too. And if you liked this episode or you know someone from Scarborough, make sure you send them this episode.
Yes.
And so they listen to the whole rest of the season. See you around town.
High five. Nice job.
Thank you, Katie.